Blessings. Blessings, Sister Winfrey. Prophetess Mary, God bless you. It's good to see you. Nick Kerr. Can you eat that block? To God be the glory. God bless you this morning. God bless you this morning. Zenus 87, God bless you. Sister Holly, it's good to see you, woman of God. I know many of you have seen the title. It's something kind of dropped in my spirit during service today. And it's just the power of God in my life. You know, as I was watching the fight yesterday, and I was amongst some people that I can say that they wasn't saved. I can say, well, you know, I won't say they wasn't saved. I can say that they wasn't living a holy life. You know, there's a lot of profanity, you know, here and there a little bit, you know, amongst kids. They were drinking alcohol. Things were happening in the presence, and I just, you know, and I just look back and I begin to flash back about where God had brought me from. And when back in the days, I would say a couple years ago, I would probably be in the same amongst them, you know, probably cussing, drinking, smoking, doing what I, you know, do. But I thought what you do in the company of the others that are doing the same thing that you did. And I just began to just feel back. I just seemed like I kind of like stepped out of my body and began to just kind of reverence God from where I came from, who I am now. And you know, I thought about, you know, what my spirit man was telling me. You know what? You got stronger. You got stronger. But my flesh man. You know what he was telling me? You can have a beer. You can have a beer. Go and some wine. They got some wine over there. You have a glass of wine or something, you know. And I just like, you know what? And my spirit man was like, no, that's not what I've called you to. And I just began to understand when Job says, lo, he slay me, yet will I trust thee. I began to understand then that a wounded worshiper, I will still continually worship God in spirit and in truth. No matter the fact that I've been wounded, no matter the fact that I've been through situations, no matter the fact that I've been through certain trials that have brought me through certain things, but I continue to worship God in spirit and in truth, in spite of. And when Job said that, he said, but in me, in God, I will still keep my ways with him. And understand when you're going through and when you're under temptation and when you're under certain trials and comes in your life, that you continue to still worship God, that's when you get your breakthrough. That's when you receive your blessing. That's when you receive understanding to know that God will never leave you nor forsake you. When you continuously worship him, you know, I was like, you know what? The temptation, it became so strong and so heavy, whole armor one, that I began to like think like, God, well, no, why is the enemy dealing with me on this, man? Like, you know, I'm not gonna take a drink. You know, I drink. You know, my son made a comment. You the only one that ain't drinking. You know, and I sat there and I thought back, Sister Prophetess Mary, and I was like, you know what? That's good. You know, and I said I'm cool. I said, you know, right on. I'm drinking a little fountain orange drink, but I normally back in days I would have been drinking and I would have been smoking and just kicking amongst the people, but still I was still with them, but I still called myself separated. I was still congregating with them, but I still can see the change that's in me, but not being of the world. I wasn't a friend to the world. I wasn't being a company of people that might not live in a holy life and a sanctified life, but I can still maintain my sanctification in God. So as you begin to understand this, that you're a wounded worshiper, God bless you, Kiana, that God will place you in the company of certain people that you may exude your light. God bless you, Sister Gail, that God will place you in a certain company of the people that you may exude his light. Did you get that? God will place you in the company of certain people that you may exude his light. So the fact that they may see the God in you, see the change in you, and know that, you know what, even though if they're doing what they're doing, they don't, it might be a come a time they might feel convicted in their own spirit and feel the same conviction that you do when you see people drinking liquor or drinking wine, and you know how you used to do it, hide your vodka in your water bottles, that type of thing. I used to do stuff like that, smoking weed around the kids and not feel convicted, certain things like that. And then you come back in. Now I said one day God will also allow me to be a wounded worshiper, because I know I can still worship God in spirit and in truth, in spite of my circumstances, in spite of my situation, because I know where he brought me from. So I know that there were some wounds that had to be healed before I can actually receive my breakthrough. There are some wounds that actually had to be healed in order for me to receive my breakthrough. So to say that I'm a wounded worshiper, I know that I go through to be wounded, but for God to heal me through the worshiping. I know that I go through, but I know that God sends me through so I can be healed through my worshiping. Because if I haven't been wounded, I wouldn't know how to worship. Come on, somebody. If I had not been wounded, I wouldn't know how to worship. Because you have to go through something sometimes that allow God to humble you through certain situations. Allow yourself to walk in a place of humility to understand, if I had not been wounded, I would not identify worship. If I had not been wounded, I would not identify worship. How can I say this? Because I know when I worship, I know the fact that I was wounded during the times before I acknowledged true worship. I know that my worship now has brought out my healing through my wounds. I know that my worship has brought healing through my wounds, because I know what God has brought me through. And it reminds me, when I seen them smoking weed, they come to the house smelling like weed. That was a wound. That was a wound. That was a wound that I tried to cover and band-aid so many times on my own, to the point that when I pick the scab, it will constantly keep continuing on to bleed. But I allow God to heal my wounds in order to see me through, so that I can receive the breakthrough and receive the promise that God has set aside for me. So then I begin to become a devout worshiper, because I worship God in spirit and truth, and understand that through my wounding, I became a worshiper. Are you with me? I said through my wounding, I became a worshiper, to understand that greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. And to know that when God has called me, he called me to something great. And it's not of me that he's called me for it, but it's of him that he has called me to the special place in order to receive the fullness of God. To know that I can be around people that are doing the things and still a friend of the world, and not be a friend of the world and still kicking amongst people that will be changed and be converted into the believer that God has caused me to be. God bless you, Sister Caitlin. And I receive that. I receive that so good in my spirit, because the point, I begin to get happy. I begin to get happy. It's good to see you, daughter. I begin to get happy, and I begin to say, you know what, God? Through my wounding, I became a worshiper, because I adore you, and I give you the admiration that you so desire through the wounding that you have brought me through. Because it says, let the redeemed of the Lord say so, who have been redeemed from the hand of the enemy. When I once used to be a weed smoker, when I once used to be a drinker, when I once used to be a fornicator, when I know that God brought me out of certain things in order for me to function and allow me to operate in the gifting and ability that has blessed me with, I know through my wounding that has allowed me to be a worshiper. So I know that my worshiping will pull me through. My worshiping will allow me to give God the glory for the things that he has brought me through. So notice today, say I'm a wounded worshiper, but I made it through. I'm a wounded worshiper, but I'm seeing it through. I'm a wounded worship, God brought me through. So as you begin to receive this in your spirit and understand that your wounds will be healed through your worship. I said your wounds will be healed through your worship. So when you go to church today, or you come from church, just show God the admiration that he has brought you through, that his eyes is on the sparrow. You know, your character, personality will open doors, but your character will keep them open. The gift of gab can keep you in a certain place, but the truth that you speak will place you in a place called destiny. I pray that somebody gets something out of this today, and know that the afflictions of the righteous are many, but God has delivered us out of them all. So you can go into constant certain people, like Sister Caitlin. She had a issue just like I had an issue a while back. It was drugs. But see, we can go to company of people that are still in that world and still in that type of thing, and be able to minister to them through our uprightness. We're not there to ridicule. We're not there to talk about them, but we're there to show them that we've been healed through our wounding, because we know who we worship. We worship God in what? Spirit and in truth. I'm a wounded worshiper. If I had not been wounded, I would not know how to worship. It's something that I understand. It's something that I believe. It's something that I receive from my spirit. Man, I know it's something that keeps me keeping on. It keeps me rejoicing, Shakanda. It keeps me knowing that God would never leave me nor forsake me. I know there's a greater power on the inside of me that's working and showing on the outside of me that God's working through me. Because I know that through my wounds, that the fact that I allow God to heal me, take me through deliverance, I'm becoming a better man. I'm seeking a better life only in Christ Jesus. Continue to know this day that you are called by God. You've been delivered by God. And you truly have been redeemed by God. But you are operating as a wounded worshiper. Be blessed. Be blessed. Be blessed. I love you all. And have a wonderful day.